Hi, I'm Pooka. I'm here in Dreams Early Access, which launched last week, doing my first tutorial capture in Early Access, and this is going to be in HD, which is a first for us as well. Today we're going to look at basically just how to get started on making new creations, the different categories there are, what those mean to you as a creator, and also how to save your work correctly and add other community members as collaborators, or just share work privately rather than making work public. There's a lot you can do, and we're going to go over what your options are. So we'll start just by going into My Creations, and I do have some creations already, but we'll just start fresh. When we come in here, these are your different categories for a new creation. Collection is the first one, and we're actually going to come back to that at the end. We'll just go through these quickly. Game scene, story scene, and showcase scene. These are all scenes, and when you create something new as a scene, it will have a round icon, like that. Over here, character, sculpture, contraption, music, vehicle, and effects. These are all elements, and they all have this hexagonal shape that you can see behind them. They will have that shape of icon. And then over here on the end we have Dreams, which has a rectangular icon. So going back, staying at the end here with Dreams, a dream, it says here, linked scenes. So when you go to create a dream, you can only place scenes into a dream. Go back over here to scenes. The different types of scenes, they don't really matter aside from the category that it shows up in when you're searching through your creations or when you have other people searching through your creations. Scenes are all made up of elements. So you can place elements into a scene, but you can't place other scenes into a scene. And you can place scenes into a dream, but you can't place elements into a dream. So there's this hierarchy, and we're going to go over that kind of step by step here. A collection can contain anything else in it. So collections can hold anything you want. And we'll come back to that also. Let's start with making an element, and we'll start just with sculpture. You can pick any of these when you're making a new element, and they will start you off sort of in different areas of create mode, which you can always exit out of and change as you want. We'll start with a sculpture, and it starts us in sculpt mode, which makes perfect sense. And just to sort of keep track of things, I'm just going to make a bright red cube, and I'm just going to stick that there, and maybe I'll just draw a little bit and make sort of a blotchy shape. And we'll just call that a sculpture, even though it's not very interesting. You can do a quick save from here, but if you've just done something and you exit, it will prompt you. Do you want to save? You can say yes. And then we'll just give this a name really quick. So we'll call this Sample Sculpture. And now, when I go back into my creations, there's the thing I just made, my beautiful red blob sample sculpture. And now I'm going to start fresh, and I'm just going to make another element. If you say that you're going to start with a character, it starts you out with the puppet gadget already in place. And this is the deluxe puppet, which is generally what you want to use when you first start creating. And we're not actually going to do anything with that puppet, but we'll just save it anyway, and we'll just call that sample puppet. So now I have these two elements in my creations, both with a hexagonal shaped icon. If I go into either of these and I edit, if I want to look for my creations through the search function, you can see that my puppet that I just made, which is also an element, I can grab that and I can stick it into this element if I want to. So you can place an element into another element, or you could place several elements into an element to make something new. I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm not going to save that. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to start a new scene. Again, Again, fundamentally, there's no real difference between the 3 different types of scene aside from how it gets tagged later. And I'm just going to do a game scene. Now when I go and I search here, I have my elements that I made earlier. So I'll just stick these 2 elements into the scene as if I was building something for real. And now I'm going to exit out of here and say yes that I want to save. And we'll just call this sample scene. Now I back out, there's my sample scene. Now if I go back into my first element here, which was the sculpture, if I go in and I go to edit this again, earlier I was able to place that puppet in here. Notice the puppet is available, but the scene that I just made is not available. You can't place a scene into a sculpture. Or, sorry, you can't place a scene into any type of an element, which a sculpture is an element. But if I really needed to get this scene into that other element, I could remix it. And now I'm kind of working on a copy of the original. If I make changes in here, it doesn't affect the original because I've made a copy. I haven't really done anything to it, so it won't automatically ask me if I want to save. But if I say quick save, and I am now remixing my sample scene, I'm going to call it a sculpture, even though it's actually a collection of things. And I'll just say, yes, we'll call that remix of sample scene. Now we'll exit back out. Now see, my remix has this hexagonal shape. I can go back over here. And now remix of sample scene, because it's an element, I can grab the whole thing, and there's that whole scene that I made earlier, and if I needed to, I could stick this down here in an element. So that option is there if you need to do that. I'm not going to save that, I'm just going to exit out of here. And I'm actually going to delete this as well. Some people have been asking about how to delete your local saves. Just go over up here and you click the trash can icon and you choose which ones you want to delete. I'm just going to do that one. And say yes. It asks you to make sure. And now that one's been deleted. So now that we've gone over the hierarchy between elements and scenes, we can start a fresh dream. And we could just exit out of here and save right away, but the way that you build a dream is you search through your stuff and it will show your scenes. So here's the sample scene that I made. Stuck that in a dream. It automatically says there's nothing else in this dream, so this must be the first level, so it'll just start you off in there. And I will say yes to saving changes. And that'll be our sample dream. So the dream contains a scene, and the scene contains elements. And the final thing that we're going to cover here in terms of the categories is a collection. There are 2 ways of adding things to a collection. You can be here in edit mode and you can search, and you could say, here's that sample dream. We'll stick it in there at the top of the collection. We want to save. Say yes. We'll call it sample collection. And now, if we exit out, there's our sample collection. It only has one thing in it. So we can go in here and we could go to edit collection and add more things in the same way that we just did. We can also go over, another way of adding things to a collection is to view the cover of any creation and send to, and then you can say here, add to dream or collection. And there's my sample collection. And I can just drop that in there. And now I'm automatically in edit mode, So it'll ask me if I want to save and say yes, and that's in there. So those are the different categories. Next, we'll look at saving a private online version and working with collaborators.